think we're just about ready to get started, so you are in the right place if you're looking for information about how to crawl a site, why to crawl a site differently, and how to adapt a crawler to be able to get the information that you need from that crawl. Just a few housekeeping messages before we start. There will be a replay. We'll send it out to anyone who's registered within the next few days. So if you have something that you want to look up again, or if you have somebody in your team that you'd like to share this with, you'll definitely have access to that. If you have questions at any time, feel free to ask them. There's a little question tab on, I believe it's at the bottom right of your screen. Feel free to leave any questions there, and we'll get to them at the end. And with that, I'd like to start by presenting myself and the people here with me today. I'm Rebecca Burbell. I'm the product marketing manager at Oncrawl. And I have with me today two people who have a lot of information to share with you. The first is Frédéric, our head of product. Hi, Fred. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
One thing I like about Fred, when I know he's at home, is sometimes you can hear or see some of his furry friends who come visit. Fred has a couple dogs that are always fun to see. And Michael is our senior SEO strategist, also at Oncrawl. I think Michael has a ton of experience in SEO from different perspectives, whether that's agency, independent, or helping different people through Oncrawl. I believe you're up to almost 8 years now, Michael. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, it's good to see you here.
Thanks.
So I think between the different perspectives that we have here, we have some really interesting things to share. I'd like to give a quick shout out to Oncrawl for making this possible. If you're not familiar with Oncrawl, we are an industry-leading technical SEO platform, and our goal is to make sure that you can support your competitive digital strategy. People who get a lot out of Oncrawl are generally people who are interested in rich data, the ability to cross-analyze and blend that data, be able to scale your SEO work, powerful segmentation, and the access to back data and your history. So with that, let's jump right in. So how do you crawl like an expert? We'll go over a few things first. So why crawling is not sort of a one-size-fits-all question, and then look at a bunch of case studies and specific situations. So how to crawl a sitemap, how to crawl only part of a site, and why you might want to do that. If you're migrating a site, since we know pretty much everyone here is always migrating something, what are the different types of crawl you might want to use and how do you set them up? And then we'll talk about alerting and monitoring and how to use crawling for that. We'll make sure we have time at the end for a little bit of Q&A. So crawling isn't a one-size-fits-all. You can't take a crawler out of a box and crawl every single site on the internet and get the same information. That can be due to a whole bunch of things, from how the site is set up, how it protects itself from unwanted bots, whether or not it's available, the instructions it gives in its robots.txt, or even just the information that you want, or the part of the site that you want to look at. So we'll look at different ways to adapt your crawler to see what you want to be able to see. And with that, I'll hand this over to Fred, who will talk a little bit about what is crawl strategy and how to do that with Oncrawl, just so we have a basic look at what we're talking about before we get into the rest. It's all yours, Fred.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you all for being present for this webinar. So for this webinar, we are going with Michael to alternate with, on my side, a more general product presentations, and for Michael, specific example of use case about crawl. So let's start with our central element of this webinar, the crawl. So how to ensure a good crawl strategy with Oncrawl. First of all, to understand this element as well, we have structured the crawl strategy around three main axes. The first one, the goal. Why am I launching a crawl? It's very important to know why you want to watch with your crawl. The second element is more about the temporality. Why this point? Because you need, if you want to make crawl, to have a regular data about your sites, or you can also want to follow a key moment. For example, if you have a site migration on either one shot, you can create for this element a one-shot dedicated crawl. The third element, the last one, is to track your metrics by monitoring changes as closely as possible. So we will see at the end of this webinar how to make alerts with a crawl. So what is a crawl for? We have seen it. This is the first pillar, the goal. What is a crawl for? Here you have some examples of why I can run a crawl. So you can have a user experience improvement. You can use it for a site structure analysis. You can use it also for security and compliance check, or for global look about your SEO. And don't forget, it's only 4 examples, but you have many others examples to use it. So as you can see, you have various reasons to launch a crawl. That's why in Oncrawl you have access to a large scale of configuration. So let's go and let's set up a new crawl in the application. In the application, to have a big overview, you have in the first configuration part, you will find global configurations with your site elements and how you want to crawl it. So it's global information about your site. You have a second part that we call extra settings. So it's an option 1. But in this menu, you have a high-level customization about your crawl configuration. And the third part is called analysis. This one is very important too, because this is the place where you have a dedicated part for all the options linked to the third parties. So like Google Analytics, Google Search Console, Majestic for your backlinks, and Piano. And you can also have all the custom fields and data you need for your crawl. So this is the goal landscape of a crawl configuration. So your goal is essential to properly configure your crawl. So
once you've set up your crawl the way you want it to be, that will allow you to look at something specific within your site.
Yes.
One of the things in your site, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, so in addition of all these configuration elements we have seen before, yesterday we added in the application the possibility of launching a crawl from a sitemap. So first of all, why use a sitemap? You can use it for different elements. You can use it for focus on relevant URLs. You can use it easily identify indexing problems in your site. You can also checking the actual presence of content, or at least you can have a proactive response to site changes. So in the application, this new option could be setting with 2 modes to use the sitemap option. The first one is that we have called it the discover mode. So just provide the URL from which we will search the file where your sitemaps.xml is put. And the second one, you can provide directly the sitemap URLs that you want to use for the crawl. So this new option is already integrated in the application. So please don't hesitate to use it. And we will have, and I will hand over to Michael for the next slide.
So a sitemap is one way of looking at part of a site. You're only looking at the URLs within that sitemap. But Michael, I know that you had some examples of how else you might need to look at a single part of a site rather than the entire site as a whole.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Rebecca. So yes, sometimes we want to have a look just on part of the website and not crawl all the structure, all the website every time. And for example, we would like to prioritize our key pages. So that's a good way to only crawl part of the website, to just focus on what we are analyzing. Yes. And sometimes we want to monitor basic but vital information, but at scale. So it's important to crawl only part of the website and be able to do it easily. So you will let the crawler explore your key pages, such as landing pages, product pages, articles, blog, your archives, for example. Just go back here. And you can also extract specific informations with scraping, also known as custom extraction on other tools. That's a very powerful tool that will let you collect, extract any kind of information available on your pages. Another use case to crawl only part of the website is to prepare your migration. So as you said, Rebecca, we are always migrating or changing something when we monitor a website or when we are in a SEO or marketing team. So we'll need to adapt our crawl strategy and prepare the migration. So we'll have, most of the time we'll have a crawl before the migration, at least to have the full overview of the website, or just an overview on part of the website. And then we'll have different crawl strategy depending on the steps of our migration. So we'll follow the migration at every stage, and we'll be able to spot issues and see if we can optimize something at every stage.
This is one of my favorite topics, so I hope we'll get into this a little bit more in detail a little bit later.
And for this purpose, we'll use two main features in Oncrawl. So the virtual robot.txt and the URL filtering system that we just released a few weeks ago. So let's have a look in details at the pros and cons. So for the virtual robot.txt, it will override your live robot.txt. So no need to change anything on your live robot.txt. It can be very dangerous, so don't do that. You can also crawl your blocked pages to see if they need to be blocked, where are they, what are those pages. You can crawl also some subdomains. So let's say you migrate, you have subdomains per country, let's say fr.oncrawl.com and then us.oncrawl.com, and I will migrate the French subdomains to a folder, so oncrawl.com/fr. So I can crawl only the French subdomains or only the subdomains I want using virtual row.txt without changing anything. It can allow us also to crawl faster than the speed set in the crawl delay directive in the row.txt. And you can test different rules on your pre-production or staging website and see how it will impact your the crawl and the behavior of the crawler, and at the end, the search engines. It's easy to implement and to correct. The cons is that you may not crawl all your pages depending on the use case, but we will see that just after. For the URL filtering, so it's a new tool we just released. It's extremely powerful because we use regex, so it's totally different than the rules we use in the virtual robot.txt. You can at the same time include some pattern of URL and also exclude some others. So that's very interesting to limit the crawler on what you want to analyze. It will take into account all pages because with the robot.txt, some pages will be disallowed, and if they are disallowed, we cannot crawl those pages, so we cannot follow links on them. And at the same time, we will respect with the URL filtering, we will respect the live robot.txt.
That's really important if you're trying to imitate the behavior of a bot or something else on your site. So if you're trying to see what a search engine sees, being able to respect that live robots.txt is such an important element.
Yeah. And the cons is that we need to be familiar with regex, but if you have if you are lucky to have a nice CSM at Oncrawl, will help you with pleasure. We eat regex every day. For example, let's say we want to crawl a staging site that is disallowed to every kind of bot. So we will enable the virtual robot.txt in the crawl configuration. So it's inside the extra settings. We will configure the host name and then two simple rules: user agent on crawl if you use the Oncrawl bot, or you can replace it by a star to match all user agent. Don't forget it's only for Oncrawl, so it won't be applied on your site. And then allow everything. You can also disallow some folders or resources if you don't want the crawler to access to access them. So that's the way we do it when the staging site is disallowed. Now let's say we want to crawl only our product detail pages with a virtual robot.txt. We could do it, but we'll see the limits. So same mechanism, we will enable the virtual robot.txt, allow the home page with allow slash and the dollars, allow the PDPs with the rule allow products slash stars, and then disallow everything else. So we want to do it this way, but we'll see the limits. So let's see how it will look like with the structure, basic structure of a website. So we'll start crawling from the home page. Remember, the home page is allowed, and we have on the home page some promoted products, product 1, product 2. So the home page will be allowed. So promoted product 1 and 2 will be also allowed and then crawled because they match the URL structure. Then we have a landing page that will list some products. And because this landing page is not allowed, because it does not match the slash product and the pattern of the URL, this landing page will be disallowed. So your product 3 and product 4 and all other products available on that page will be allowed, but not crawled because of the landing page that is disallowed in the virtual robot.txt. So that's a problem, and our crawl won't be accurate at all. So there is a solution. So what's the solution? It's to use the URL filtering instead. So that's also something available in the crawl configuration. You can enable the filter you want, and then you just have to put this simple rule, include products slash anything else. And let's have a look what it will look like in the same structure. So the home page will be explored but not fetched. So we will follow links on the home page pointing to product pages. So the home page won't be available in the results. If you want, so you can include also the home page. The promoted product 1 and 2 will be explored and fetched. The landing page 1 won't be explored, but will be explored, sorry, but won't be fetched. So we will follow links pointing to your products. And with this feature, we'll be able to explore any links pointing to your PDP, even if the origin page is not matching the pattern you want to crawl. So that's a the perfect feature for that use case.
With that, we can actually get into the question of migrating, which will give you a whole bunch of different ideas of why you might want to look at a specific part of your site or when you might want to crawl the entire site. Well, I'll let Michael take you a little bit further into this one, which I know can be a bit of a rabbit hole. We might have to do a whole webinar on this one at some point.
Yes, definitely. So yes, for the use case of the migration, there is a lot to say. But regarding the crawl strategy, you will have to prepare your migration. So before the migration, most of the time we want to have a clear overview of the website before changes. So we can run a full crawl with all the data combined. So we will plug the logs, GSC, GA, or AT Internet or Piano, and collect as much data as we can. Or we can also, if you are just migrating part of the site, create a crawl profile just to explore this part of site that will be migrated. So different crawl profile for each goal. We can crawl also the staging environment. So we'll see that after. Don't forget to scrap the data you want. It's better to have more data than no data. So with Oncrawl, you can create up to 100 scrapping rules, and that's very useful. And then you will be able to list, extract, and export all this kind of information and group pages regarding the data you just scrapped. So, for example, the number of pages without product of stock, product without content, the pages you want to redirect, where are the links, and so on. and then you can export the data as CSV, JSON, or you can also use our API to do it at scale. And then at each step of the migration, you will probably need to run a crawl to check your different goals, if you achieve them, yes or no, and if no, what need to be changed. So during your migration, you may want to crawl a staging site that is not even accessible to search engines or bots if you don't set up the crawl correctly. So we have some settings to access staging sites. The first one is the authentication. You can enable the authentication and fill in your username password to access the pre-production website, and then be able to explore everything. The second one, for security reason, you may have protected your staging site, and to crawl your staging site, maybe it will be hosted on a different servers. So we have this feature, DNS override, that will let the crawler access your staging site, even if it's on another IP. So another one important. Yes, Rebecca?
Well, no, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Here, one of the other elements that can be really useful is addressing the user agent that you're using in those particular cases. Sometimes you'll only have allowed a specific user agent to access a protected site. And that's something I know that Fred would like to talk about at the moment. Fred, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, thanks. Let's go for another new announcement of the possibility of how Crawler is setting up a new option with the user agent. So the user agent, to explain it quickly, plays the role of a client in a client-server system. So in fact, this option allows you to test how your site will be interpreted by the browser. So you can use it to test the result for JS rendering. You can follow parameters for robots.txt. Or, as Michael presented just before, you can use it if you have a hidden pre-production with a security access with a specific IP or bot name. So this is a new option that allow you to have more crawl profile settings and to use it in the application. So, for example, just to see here. Examples of configuration if you want to use a Googlebot or Yandexbot to crawl your site with. So just to give you an information, this new option will arrive in the next few weeks. So we have since few months improved our crawl configuration menu with more options to give you the possibility to stick to be able to stick with all your use cases. So I hope all this will help you in your daily work. So just now I will let go Michael with a new use case about a crawl example of site migration.
Thanks, Fred. So yes, that's really important to be able to customize the user agent, especially in case of migration. So let's go back to this topic, because sometimes your staging site is also protected with a pair of IP and user agents. So to access your staging site, you will need to customize the user agent and also use specific IPs. So that's really important.
Even if it's not protected, that can be extremely useful, because since it's not already posted on Google or accessible to Google, that'll give you an idea before you set it up where your errors might be, what things Google might not be able to see in your current setup.
So then, once you have access to your staging environment, you may want to launch a crawl on it and compare the data to your live website. This will allow you to spot differences and issue with a feature we call crawl comparison, also known as crawl over crawl, regarding the tech SEO. So for each crawl 1, crawl 2, you will be able to check the number of pages crawled, the number of indexable pages, canonical pages, pages in no index, or the average depth, the average in rank, the average in links. So you will be able to monitor at each stage if you are making improvements or not, and be able to report it. As I said, internal structure, internal linking, and also internal popularity. So every chart in Oncrawl can be compared with the crawl 1 and crawl 2, which correspond to your staging and live site. Also, you will be able to check the content and duplicate content. So if you move some content, or if you combine different content, do you still have duplicate issue? Yes or no? So you will be able to monitor it. And then web perf and web vitals. So if you work on the load time, it's something really important for Google. So you will be able to check your improvements on your staging compared to your live site. And then once your migration is done, and once you push everything to your live site, you will need to run a new crawl at the end to check if everything is okay on your live site. So maybe have another crawl profile to adapt your needs, run a full crawl, or just focus on part of the website. If you've made redirection, so if you moved URL or changed URL structure, you will probably need to check your redirections. So in this case, the URL list mod will be useful, but also the sitemap mod. I will talk about it just after. So you can create a list of pages in redirects, put it on crawl, and ask the crawler to explore those pages and see if at the end they are redirected to a valid page with a 200 status code, yes or no. And if you did everything correctly, you should end with only 200 at the end, normally. And then, once again, you can compare the data before you run the migration and after the migration, because you run a crawl before, then you run a crawl after, and then you can compare and see if everything is okay, if you improve your internal structure, and so on. So one tips, when you change URLs or site structure and you have a redirect plan, create a sitemap for your redirected pages and submit it to Google through your Google Search Console account. It will, Googlebot will be aware of these changes really fast, and the detection will be also fast by Googlebot. If you have the chance to have the logs also, you will be able to see once you submit the sitemap in your Google Search Console account. In few hours or days, you will be able to see Googlebot hitting your sitemaps and visiting your pages. So, yeah.
And if you need to check your site, your redirects, you can, as you just listed, use that sitemap crawl mode again.
Yes, the last one is to use the sitemap crawl mode that we just released to ensure that everything is okay and all the pages are redirected to valid pages.
So I guess that means that even if you keep that sitemap up to date, you can always just run it as a sitemap crawl to check those redirects without having to compile a list.
Yeah. And then once the migration is done, once everything is okay, don't stop there. Keep crawling your site, keep collect data, so you can schedule crawl every day, every week, every month, on part of the website, on all the website, maybe also daily on your key pages. We have clients that crawl their top 5,000 pages every day. I have a client that check the home page every day. So we have different crawl profile, crawl configuration, and then we can be also alerted. So that's the other part. Maybe I will give the mic to Frédéric.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Fred.
Yes, so for the last pillar, alerting. So alerts are really essential in SEO to follow your site tendencies or detect issues. So don't hesitate when you use the application to create all the alerts you need. For example, you can use it for website monitoring, quality assurance, business cases with custom fields. Everything you want, you can use it in the application. So this feature allows you to create all the fields reported by how crawler. So you have straight element like page returning status code. You have pages with the next or with unexpected little text. You have pages with a duplicate or missing title tag. So don't hesitate. Make all the alerts you want. The limit is approximately 100 in your account, so you can go. You can also use, as I said, all the custom fields to follow specific part of your business needs. Scrap your home page, have mandatory elements in a page description, for example, or use it for stock verification. And if I have something to say, finally, you also have access to all the third parties fields to create dedicated alerts on this topic too in the application. So this is the last element of our three pillar to make a good crawl. So you just before, yes, I missed something just before. To explain you have a screenshot on the right. All the system of the alerting use the same language as how Data Explorer. It's Oncrawl query language to very finally configure your alerts. You have another element is the light point is about notifications. So for example, if you have alerts on content elements, you can send it to the marketing team directly, or if you have technical ones, yes, Rebecca, it's for you. And if
not my job anymore.
you can send all the alerts to the SEO team directly in your company. So you can use for that different channels. You can use emails. You can use Slack or Teams in the application with Webhook directly. So to resume quickly all we have seen, you've got one goal, so you have to create one crawl profile. It's very important to know what you have to do and to dedicate a crawl profile to your needs. Define the temporality, so create the associated scheduled crawls, as said Michael just before, and don't hesitate to follow the progress without being in the application. So create alerts to be alerted everywhere. So in 3 words, automate your work. And it's all for me.
That's actually a really great place to pause for a second and look at some of what we've seen, because I know some of it was a little bit dense. Michael talked about a whole bunch of different use cases and ways to address them. So I think these 3 key pillars from Fred that we saw from the very beginning are really key here. So what are you looking for? What is the information you need in order to be able to progress? Create your crawl profile based on how to obtain that information. Then make sure if that's something that you're going to need to see, if that's something that's supposed to change, crawl it regularly, and then monitor that change, whether that's manually using crawl comparison between 2 crawls, or even alerting. You never know when you're going to need to be alerted to something you didn't expect to change. The top takeaways, if we're looking at what we saw throughout this entire presentation, you don't always have to crawl your full site. Michael talked about different reasons to crawl parts of a site. You might want to crawl pages that are listed in your sitemaps. There are a whole host of reasons to do that. You might want to monitor basic but vital information, like is your homepage indexed or de-indexed? Or you might want to explore specific sections that might or might not be correlated to your site structure or to your URL structure. So those might be different types of pages, different templates of pages, different sections of your website, and so on, but not the full site. You can use different settings within a crawl to target different site sections, whether that's robots.txt, replacing and overriding the elements that you have already set up for your site just for this crawl, or whether that's filtering the URLs that you want the crawler to explore and save. You can also use different settings and different scopes of crawl depending on the context that you're looking at this website. So those settings can go anywhere from telling a crawler what it's allowed to explore, what types of links it wants to follow, to using authentication, modifying the user agent, using different crawl types, such as list mode that might let you check a list of redirects, or sitemap mode that lets you crawl a sitemap of redirects. So different ways to getting to the same result. Those settings and scopes will let you look at something specific based on the context that you have. So if the context, as Mikael mentioned, is a migration, you might only want to look at the differences between your live site and your staging site. In a different context, you might only want to know what's going on with new products or with recent articles, depending on what your actual need is. And finally, you're always going to want to monitor changes, whether that's an unexpected change on your site. If we're going to pick on the marketing name, somebody published a page that you didn't expect, and it has links that aren't supposed to be there, or are anchor text that you don't want to see, or even broken links on it. Or your IT team rolled out something new, and it's not quite doing what it's supposed to. So those are things that you might want to crawl regularly and just be alerted for if there's something going on. It doesn't always have to be you. You can alert that team directly through a system like Slack, or you can send them an email. Those are all things that can be done within Oncrawl. If you only want to monitor blog pages and only want to tell the marketing team about that, that works too. So with all of that, the question is always, what are the next steps? And some of the good questions to ask yourself are going to be things like, are you looking at the right parts of your website? And if not, how can you focus on them? Are you capturing the right information at the right time? And if not, what are the things that you need to obtain that information? You might need to scrape different information. You might need to follow or not follow certain types of links. You might need to authenticate so that you can reach certain parts of your website. Are you taking snapshots of your website frequently enough in order to be able to see and react to changes? And are you showing those changes to the right people so that they can be corrected or opportunities seized? And with those questions for you, we're ready to look at any questions you have for us. If you haven't yet, you can head over to the question area and ask any questions you might have. We do have a few that people have left for us earlier. So we might open with those if there are no questions yet. I think we'd have a good one here. Can you crawl a site and a site structure and a sitemap at the same time? Do you want to take that one, Mikael?
Yes. So yes, that's a possibility. We can definitely set the crawler in the sitemap mode, so we will be able to explore your sitemaps. But then you can also change the crawler behavior and allow it to crawl and to follow, for example, follow the redirects, follow the alternates, follow the canonicals, and so on, and follow the links pointing to other pages. So the first part will be the crawler will start by crawling the sitemaps. Then if the crawler finds pages in the structure that are not in the sitemaps, the crawler will follow the links and explore the pages. So you will have the overview of pages in your sitemaps and in the structure at the same time.
So I think that's actually a really important point to focus on, that the behavior of the crawler itself during the crawl is also something that you should be able to control. So if there are things that you want it to do or not do, those are actual elements that you can modify before you start the crawl. I know another question that we'd had offered was a question about whether or not you have a recommendation for somebody who doesn't have a regular crawl schedule set up. What would a typical, for a pretty basic site, what would a typical crawl strategy look like?
So at least you want to have data, fresh data, and enough data. So the question we have to ask ourselves are important. But if you don't know what to do, what crawl strategy you need to adopt, at least maybe you can crawl everything. If it's not a large website, talking about million pages, maybe you can, yes, you can have at least one weekly or monthly crawl, depending on the quota of URL you have in your subscription. So at least you can have a weekly or monthly crawl to have fresh data every month, every week. Yeah. So let the crawler start from the home page, explore everything, don't block everything. If you have some subdomains, crawl them if they need to be crawled or if they are important in your SEO strategy or for your business. And that's the basic behavior of the crawler.
Thanks, Mikael. I think one of the other questions we do have is a feature request, so we will make sure that we get that up to the right people and get an answer directly to the person who asked it. And if there are no more questions, well, let's see, we do have a question. Here's a question from Alfredo. We mentioned earlier a migration to a subfolder, but what if we were to migrate to a different CMS? Would it be essentially the same process to follow?
Yes, it will be quite the same process to follow. Even if it's not the same CMS, we need to ensure that the crawler can access this site. Normally, every CMS are SEO compliant, and all the pages can be crawled. So at least we could run a test crawl. So what I will do is to run a test crawl on part of this new site, on this new CMS, see if everything is okay with a sample of URL. And then if it's, for example, a large website, because I don't want to waste all my crawl budget with the wrong crawl configuration, then I can adjust the settings and yes, follow the same step.
Okay, sounds like a great way to proceed. And I think we're just nearly out of time. So I'd like to thank everyone for their participation today. Thanks for joining us. We had fun. I hope you had fun. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're on a bunch of social media, either as ourselves or at Oncrawl, and we'll be happy to get back to you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.